I am Carl. I am a addict, alcoholic, and my sobriety date is August 22nd, 2014.
My name is Lindsay. I'm an alcoholic, and my sobriety date is September 6th, 2015.
This is SoberPod.
Soberpod.com. Yeah, SoberPod, keep it authentic, no facades. If it's real, then you know it's ours. Welcome.
So SoberPod is a podcast dedicated to the idea that one addict or alcoholic helping another is crucial to building a life in recovery. Join us this season as we read from our book, 366 Effing Days Sober, and Lindsay's book, The Spirit Vigilante. And as always, stay active, stay sober. So, hello again, Lindsay. How you doing?
Hello. I'm doing excellent. How are you?
Hello, sunshine. What is it? The world says hello. What is it? Willy Wonka. What is it? Do you know what
You're
I'm talking
kind of
about?
giving like a Mr. Rogers thing right now.
I could do that too. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood.
Yeah. I'm
Hey, I don't
feeling that
mind
vibe from
being
you.
positive once in a while. I don't mind. I don't mind being that hokey dude. Wearing sweaters and slippers and shit. If you can allow me to say shit when I do it.
Right.
So, how was your week? What'd you do? Did you do anything fun?
Good. Yeah, I had a great weekend, actually. I have this new life hack because I can't really stay up late and I'm always get nervous about like driving home and parking. And I have this new life hack of just getting a hotel wherever it is, even if it's 20 minutes away. So I've been doing that and it's awesome.
Really? You're just like, fuck it, I'm getting a hotel. Like,
Yeah.
that's just how
And I
this
just
works.
spend the whole weekend there, even if it's just one event that I'm going to. Yeah.
Yeah, instead of driving like the 6 hours or whatever it takes to like do
The
some
20
bullshit.
minutes.
Yeah, 20 minutes.
It's like because I used to not go to anything past like 5 p.m. because I don't like driving at night. I don't like getting home late. And so, it was my partner's son-in-law's birthday dinner. And so I just stayed at the same hotel that the restaurant
Yeah, you're like,
was at.
screw it, I'll just do it. That's not bad. Yeah, I mean, like, because it's kind of like mini vacations, right? It's like you just go, like, screw it. Like, and it just gets, it actually probably makes you feel like you get more time away.
Yeah, and I actually get stuff done, and I kind of treat it like a business trip and do some writing in my hotel room, and it's life hack.
Yeah, my wife goes with the water polo, takes the daughter to water polo a lot, and then they go in, like, even if they're just going to San Diego, it's like, it's a couple hours away to drive, but what? It's like, when you have to get there at like, but 30 in the morning, and you're like, it's even if it's like 7 in the morning, having to get up like that extra 2 hours early just sucks. So you just like, go spend the time and make it a little bit more enjoyable and get the continental breakfast,
Exactly. Where are you in California?
I can't tell anybody specifically because they'll show up at my doorstep.
Of course.
No.
Myself included.
No, I'm in Corona, California.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure.
But if you show up at my doorstep, I might let you in. And just remember, I'm probably more crazy than you are.
I'm more interested in meeting your dogs. No offense.
Oh, dude, no, they're actually the best. Okay, so all you really have to meet is Charlie. Charlie's just the best.
Okay.
That's all there is to it. Everybody else is just kind of a little lame dog. Anyway, yeah, I have a favorite. Okay, so what are we doing? I went to an improv class for 3 hours yesterday, and it was like it was pretty cool. I really appreciated like the extra training, I guess, you know what I mean? And just like and it's all just like thinking out of the box and treating like this stuff very differently, and I think it's kind of neat. I never really thought about it. It's like I have a hobby that I used to go and like play paintball or something, or people go golfing or whatever, right? It's like dude, golf costs you like, I don't even know, every time you go like $100 at least, right?
At least.
And then paintball was like, $60 for the balls, $30 for field fees, and then like all the other equipment. And then of course you're risking losing your eyeballs, And
minor details.
Yeah, just stuff like that. So this is probably the only hobby that I've ever had that probably doesn't involve like major bucks. But I was like, you know what? Gosh, I should actually like invest if I'm going to do this a little bit more. So then I noticed that there was a class available, so I went and took like another class. I signed up this morning actually for another
That's
class. It's
awesome.
all on Sundays. So that'll be cool, right? So yeah, I learned some more, and then I was like, you know what? I should probably do this more because I'm really enjoying it too much to not
And
do more.
would you ever have done that if you were still drinking?
If I would have done it drinking, this is how I would have treated it. As I would have gone, first of all, I would have said, this is such a great opportunity. I should be drunk while I do this because it would make it more fun, quote unquote.
Correct.
And then I would have looked around for people, or like, where are my other alcoholics in this environment, right? And then rather than focusing on like what the craft is for improv, I would have totally just said, fuck it, let's go to the bar. And then I would have made it all about doing that versus
Yeah.
actually doing it about the hobby. By the way, it's the same thing that I did with paintball pretty much. Yeah, I was the only one that brought like a 6-pack and shots that I could
Oh.
have between rounds. You know what I mean? So I go to my
Yeah.
car and I had beer and shots in between rounds. So you play about 6 games, and sure enough,
Ooh.
you're out there drunk with a paintball gun.
Yeah, I see no danger there.
Hey, but that's just how it rolls.
I'm glad that's not what I wanted to do when I was drunk.
Oh my God, right?
I would have like shot myself just to be funny or
Watch it. I could put one all the way down my throat. Ugh.
yeah. Literally that's what I'm envisioning.
Yeah, that would have been terrible. So yeah, I think isn't it funny we have little bit of lives, don't we? We do
Yeah,
little
it's
things and
weird.
go places and have
It's
fun
weird.
with it. And, yeah.
You know what I did this weekend? I taught a class about how to write a book.
Oh, yeah.
And it was so fun
And
and
then-
exciting.
Yeah, I don't know. I might get kind of annoyed with that, right? Because I would just,
Yeah.
I there's something about people that bugs me in this. What really bugs me is there's even in like yesterday's session. I don't want to say anything in case somebody's listening because I did give them the podcast link. But
Oh God.
who cares? The fact, it's just like college, dude. When I went to college and I realized like I'm paying for this, and when that that one person that's always like the teacher would be like talking and they would basically say something and then without fail that person, and they're always sitting in the front row, they would raise their hand and they would ask a question immediately like relating to what the teacher just said. And basically like the teacher just answered their question and it's like they weren't listening at all and they just decided that they would ask a question. And I'm just like, the teacher just fucking said that. You know what I mean? Like, I was like,
Yeah.
put your fucking hand down. Stop asking. Because then I realized, I'm paying to listen to this woman ask fucking questions about shit the teacher just fucking answered. So why don't you just fucking listen rather than, you know what I mean? Like, I paid for this
Oh my
shit.
gosh. Do you
Yeah.
want to I'm kind of hearing that you want to help co-teach my next
No.
class.
No, because I'd be like, because the next time somebody says some shit, somebody asked me a question, and I'd be like, did you not fucking just listen? What's your fucking
'Cause
problem?
I can't say that when I'm facilitating,
Yeah.
but you can.
I could be like your angry translator, right?
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean? Because I'm sure that there's like students that you have doing that shit. I just couldn't do it. I'd be like, shut the fuck up.
That's
Yeah,
hilarious.
it would just get to me. But you know what? There's times when I have been that person sometimes because I'm like, oh, I didn't just hear what they
Yeah.
said. And
Yeah.
so I kind of get it. But dude, when you can like predict that person's going to raise their hand and ask a question, it's like I'm focused on the wrong thing. I just got to leave the class, So
Or what
yeah.
about when the teacher says there are no dumb questions?
And there are dumb statements. That's what I would say. I'd say, nope, that's a dumb question. Especially if somebody just answered it. All right. So Lindsay, what are we doing here? We're talking about, nobody wants to hear us talk about our fucking weekends. Nobody
No.
wants to hear our shit.
No.
They came here to give me some fucking sober information. Get me
Yeah,
into
so why don't you
recovery.
read your reflection for March
Oh,
3rd?
that's awesome. It jumps right into it, doesn't it? We should just
Yeah.
cut to the podcast and just start right here.
Well, I think it kind of segues into, I think it will, what we're talking about in our weekends and having lives kind of
Oh, yeah, yeah.
is relevant to the topic. So
I guess, it could be relevant. That's good. We'll make it relevant. How's that?
we'll make it.
Yeah. So the reading, March 3rd. That's when we're recording. That's what I'm going to read, and that's what we're going to talk about, hopefully. So this is March 3rd from 366 effing days sober. A lot of people come into recovery later in life haggard and beat the fuck down. The body can't take what it used to. The bender you could ride out in your 30s looks much different when you are in your 40s. It's sometimes the only way to get the gift of desperation needed to embrace this new life. To ride it out until the end and get sick and tired of being sick and tired. Some of us suffer from this fucked up thought about our age and then it might be too late to get this thing, and that's bullshit. You are never too old to embrace the life you were born to have. So get out of your fucking self-pity and jump in there. You are going to get old anyway. You might as well be happy while you're doing it. This moment is an opportunity to live again, to see the world anew, and put on a new pair of glasses, to enjoy the world thoroughly. You can do this, but it will take some effort and time. Just remember, one day at a time. Reflections. When was the last time you went to a park or the ocean to sit, feel, and listen? Maybe go up a mountain and look down? Daily challenge. Go to a fucking mountain. Look down.
I laughed when I saw when I read that earlier.
I mean, when's the last time you went up a mountain? When's the last time like you actually went up to a mountain just to look down?
It's been a few years.
Yeah, there used to be there was a mountain when we were kids, and it's a mountain-ish. Southern California, there are lots of hills and mountains. And there's just one mountain that everybody would go up. They would go hiking, and it's because it was all built. And actually, it's even built for like handicap as well. And so, and then this big cross on the top, and everybody goes up there. And it's kind of like the mountain that everybody goes climbing every once in a while. And it's so funny. Like in my growing up days, like I had one like right behind my house, like right across the freeway. I could just go up, and you would go up there, and it was just really neat because you got to see everything, and it was just kind of cool. And it took you a majority of the day to get up there, right, and get down.
Yeah.
So but it was always like so peaceful, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that weird? Like you would think that, I don't know, it wouldn't take that sometimes, but it does. It takes getting the fuck away from everybody and everything, and putting yourself where you haven't been, just to kind of get a new perspective. So
And see the world as so much bigger than
yeah,
ourselves.
and to take it all in, and it
Yeah.
just does make you consider it differently. That's for sure. There's a few spots in the book where I do kind of talk about trying to visualize that, as well as going up a fucking mountain.
Yeah, like zooming out.
Yeah,
kind
for
of.
sure. So I guess one of the points I really enjoyed, and I think you actually enjoyed it too, which is you said you might as well be happy while you're doing it. This moment is an opportunity to live again. I think one of the things that I liked about even thinking like that is it kind of went along the lines of those statements they say when's the best time to plant a tree? Have you ever heard that statement?
No.
They say the best time to plant a tree is it was 20 years ago. Right? Because then you could experience the shade, from it and blah, blah. But the next best time to plant a tree is today. So because in 20 years, you will have the shade from that tree. And that's kind of like the idea about like stopping, getting sober, and as it relates to age. I've seen so many older dudes come into the rooms, and I don't know what it was. I mean, maybe it was a little bit about how I felt. When I was 42 years old and I came in this time, I didn't really plan on staying sober, quote unquote. And I didn't, I think I just wanted a break. But but I ended up thinking, like, at one point I was like, man, I'm just too old to get sober. Like, this is bullshit. Like, look at all these young people getting sober. Like, they're in their 30s, you know? And I'm like, and I kept thinking, like, they have no idea, like, how long I drank and how much I need to stay drunk. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't have it in me. I don't have the energy. I don't have the time. I just might as well just, like, it's just going to get in the way if I get sober. That's kind of how I thought. Isn't that
Yeah,
weird?
like I'm already on this path and I'm invested.
Yeah.
So
And I tried to stop so many times, so I just resigned myself to being a drinker. I was like, and it wasn't,
yeah.
I mean, I was shitting blood, but it wasn't like it was coming out in courts. You know what I
It
mean?
wasn't that bad. How many times I've said it
I
wasn't
could
that
manage the coagulated blood in my
Oh.
stool. I could manage. You know what I mean? So I mean, I'm the only one that saw it go down the toilet. It didn't affect anybody else.
But now, yet we're all re-experiencing it with you, which I can't thank you enough for.
You're welcome. I'll send you pictures later, though.
Oh.
So I think one of the things is I really thought at some point, I mean, I really thought this in my early recovery. I was just like, you know what? I'm just too old to get sober. And then I would see older dudes come in, and after I had been, sober a couple years, and then I was just like, and I wanted to share that with them. Like, I wanted to share what I had found so much. I wanted them to really get it, because I was just like, hey, dudes, like, I know what you're thinking. Like, you're thinking, like, especially if I was thinking it at 42, you're definitely thinking it at 52 and 60, you know? And I was just like, so I would approach them and I would just talk to them, and I want them to see the light. You know what I mean? Like, I want them to
Yeah.
experience, like, the
Yeah.
joy of sobriety is really what I was at. And I would try to almost, like, try to talk them into it. Like, dude, like, stay as long as you can, and, like, until you get a couple of years, and then make a decision whether you're going to leave or not, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's really kind of sad sometimes, because I've seen so many of these dudes that just can't do it. They literally just go, you know what? I'm too old, I'm too beat, and I'm too run down, and I'm just gonna go back and drink, and I'm sorry, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
And I just go, oh, like, it's just heartbreaking as hell.
Yeah, we have this weird relationship to time and thinking that it's too late for us to do things. And, when people are talking about going back to school or this and that, and it's like, do you know how old I'm going to be by the time XYZ? And it's like, yeah, it's going to be the same age as if you don't do it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's like learning piano, right? People say the same thing. It's like, I want to learn piano. No, it'll take me 5 years. And it's like, it's like, but in 5 years, you'll be just as old, but you'll have not learned the piano.
Exactly. Right. So I think it's the same thing with getting sober. If you are agreeing to continue this life and want to improve it and are going to live anyway, like we said, and you're going to age anyway, how do you want to do that? And I see a lot of people come in later in life, and I go to a lot of women's meetings, and a lot of times women retire from their jobs or become empty nesters or something, and that's when their drinking really takes off. So there's no one way that this disease comes upon people. And there's so many ways that it can enter your life, which means it looks so different for everyone depending on when you enter recovery.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not a reason not to ever. It's never, ever too late.
Yeah. And I that's what I try to inspire people as much as possible, because I think one of the things for me is that it was about the dramatic change, and it really was about, I think I've shared this with you too, which is like, don't kill yourself in the first 5 years because you're going to be killing the wrong person, because you really don't know who you are, what you're capable of, what like really this life is going to bring you. And the change can be so dramatic that it really changes your entire fiber at times, where it's like, and they talk about it like in the big book, where once it seems so impossible for some people to just even consider getting out of bed, they literally walk again. And but they don't really talk about like how big those steps can get. And that is just like the surprising thing. I have my entire life, I have said, on some level, I used to collect. You'll relate to this totally. I used to collect fortune cookies, and so I have them all, and I saved every fortune cookie I've ever had. Basically, I've lost a few. Don't get me wrong, but I have like a place where
The
I put all.
cookies
No, the paper.
themselves?
Okay,
the
paper.
paper. Okay.
Oh, that would be weird, huh? Like I just have like cookies saved everywhere.
I was like, oh my God, that level of delayed gratification is,
I'm
we
gonna
have
open
another
them on my
problem here.
deathbed and see how many came true.
I was
No.
like, but what did they say, Carl?
That's great. So I have just the papers, and I have them all in like a book that I've had for like the longest time. And I used to just keep them in a
That's so
bowl, and now
cool.
I keep them in a little book. And there's a bunch of them that say this: "You are a lover of words. Someday you will write a book." And I was just like, "Holy buckets!" Right? And so that's the thing is, I would have never. I mean, I held on to those ones, and I was like, always, I have it memorized, as you can tell, right? I've always wanted to write a book. It's something that has been in my fiber to do. But let me just tell you, I had no idea for a book. I had no understanding of a book. You know what I mean? Like I had nothing that would even be book worthy, to be honest. What am I going to do? Write about my drunk escapades or
Your
whatever?
coagulation.
Yeah, my coagulation in the toilet. That's great. When Chelsea and I were recording and we were talking about setting goals, and I was 5 years sober. I think she was probably 4 or 5 years. She said that she wanted to go be a registered nurse, and I said I wanted to write a book, and I didn't even then have an idea of what it was going to be. But let me just say, like those things when I was drinking would have never been that goal would have just been a fantasy. It was literally like what we talk about, which is like, we talk about doing these things versus doing them because we get the joy of saying that we're going to do it, right? And we feel satisfied saying, oh, someday I'm going to write a book. And we never do it. And then it just becomes like one of those life disappointments rather than one of those life goals. And so Chelsea actually went on to become a registered nurse. And I went on to write a book. And 2 years later, we were talking on the podcast, talking about like,
That's
hey,
amazing.
do you remember when we talked about our goals, what we were going to do for the year? And she's like, that was 2-3 years ago or whatever it was. And we actually did it. And it was just like, that's the amazing part about like when you think that you're too old, when you think that you haven't, you know what I mean? Like if you're just getting into sobriety, I think one of the things that for me was get a foundation, and I didn't. And people will discourage you, by the way, from running out and starting a business, and they'll discourage you from like doing all these other things. Sometimes for good reason, and sometimes because they like don't think that it's possible, right? So you have to make that decision. But what I found is that people were trying to discourage me from doing something maybe that I wasn't ready to do, or maybe that I hadn't built a foundation for, right? So I hadn't built a foundation in my recovery. In order to, for instance, as a good example, I wanted to freelance more. I wanted to go get clients and take on more work, like within 6 months of getting sober. And that, like, by no means would that be something that I should be doing. Taking on that kind of level of responsibility and taking on more work, etc. The best part is I was going to do this, and there's more to the story, but long story short, my wife said I was going to take this work. And she called me up basically, like I was going to take it on a Tuesday. She called me up on a Thursday and said, should you really do that? And I was just like, what are you saying? Like, you're my wife. Like, you should want more money. You know what I mean? And she's like, no, because and she knew me too well. She goes, you've been doing really well. And I just want to say, if you take the work and for whatever reason you stumble, you fall, you miss a deadline, maybe you don't accomplish what you think, you're going to drink. And she goes, and then the other thing, if you're really successful and you get it done early and you get the money, you're going to drink.
You're going to drink.
And I was just like, oh, bitch had my number. I was like, oh, my God, oh, fuck. But she was so right. And I called my sponsor and I told him, I'm like, hey, like, this is what my wife said. And he's like, yeah, she knows you better than I do. So how about you just don't take that work? And it was like, but that's what I needed to do at that moment in early recovery. And it seems like I guess the point I'm trying to make here is like when we're getting into recovery and we think stuff like I'm too old for this shit, or oh look, I'm getting held back. I got all this energy now. Why can't I use it? It's like because a lot of the times we're not prepared to use it.
Yeah.
And just if you wait just a little bit longer, just a little bit more, or solidify your foundation in recovery, and then you'll be amazed at the platform that you have to launch from.
Yeah.
Because
You do need that foundation.
so.
Yeah.
Lindsay, talk to me about your what fortune cookies have you held on to?
None. I used to do that. I used to have some taped to my desk, but no, I haven't. I'm trying to now change this into a metaphor to go into another topic. I don't know. One of the things that we were kind of thinking about before the episode was how, like, if you're gonna live anyway, you might as well enjoy it, and how to embrace that rather than dread that. And I know that something for me, which was actually precipitated getting sober, was I remember being in bars and seeing older women who were kind of acting like I was acting. And I had this revelation of like, one day this isn't going to be cute. Like I can't do this forever. And nothing is separating me and that, woman in her 60s who's acting foolish, like if my life is on this path, that is the end game, if I even get that far, So realizing that I had to have another reason to live. It sounds so silly, but like another reason to live rather than just drinking in bars and trying to get attention from whoever would give it to me. And it's definitely the harder path to try to figure that out sober. But I really was like, if I'm going to continue this, I need to do X, Y, and Z. And another thing, because I was thinking about talking to older people and encouraging them to come into recovery, and it's not too late. And part of me was like, unless you just want to kill yourself now, then like you can do that.
By all means, go drink your
By all
little
means.
brains out. Yeah.
And I was in a meeting yesterday and someone was sharing that he wanted to kill himself, and he was talking to his therapist, and he had been wanting to for a while. So his therapist had him make a list of like all the people that would be affected and all the things that he did and blah, blah, blah. And so he had this list and he said to his therapist, I think I'm going to do it. Like, I'm at peace with it. I know you're going to try to talk me out of it. And he said, no, I'm not going to try to talk you out of it at all. Like, you can do it. But all of these people that you feel you've disappointed, is the image that you are right now what you want to leave them with if you kill yourself, rather than getting a chance for forgiveness or all of that. And it just was
get your life together and make it look really good and then kill yourself?
Yeah, pretty much. He brought that up.
Get in really good shape first. Get your
He
abs
brought
all
that
tight.
up too. He brought that up too. He was like 5 years into sobriety. He's thinking like, oh, okay, well now I can go.
Yeah,
but we were kind of making because I had shared even in sobriety, like thoughts of suicidal ideation. And we were kind of making the comparison of that with drinking. Like we only get a daily reprieve, right? And that those thoughts can come back so quickly. And I guess what I'm trying to say is for those people coming in older and saying it's too late for me, to think about the people, like, guess what? It's not all about you. What about the people in your life who are being harmed by this? Like, it's not too late for them. And you have more reasons other than yourself to get sober. Like, what could you do? Might you get sober? And just you starting this podcast, like the world wouldn't have this, you know?
So, and that's the plant a tree thing.
Exactly.
Right. Because
Exactly.
it's like, I'm going to either plant it 20 years ago so it could totally benefit me and I can sit in its shade, or today I'm going to plant the tree so that it, so that it'll be there for other people
Right.
when they need it. Right.
Right.
So that's the idea.
Right.
So, and by the way, like the dramatic difference of like after 5 years for me was like amazing. So when that person talks about, And I know that you can still get impacted and you can still get affected and you can still have thoughts of suicide 5 and 10, 20 years in. There's people that that literally, when I was first getting into recovery in the club, that I was going to, people would be like, hey, did you hear about so-and-so? And he'd be like, no. And he's like, yeah, 20 years, sober. And he just decided, he's done. And, and that's a reality. That's some serious reality going on. So, the things that happen to normal people who don't drink and use also happen to people who do drink and use, who also happen to people who are in recovery. It's like all those things we definitely need to talk about. So talking about that, one of the things I do when I do this is I make sure to say that go to the crisis hotlines. Those numbers are available. What is the new number? 988, right? I believe it's 988. And then if you are definitely in the United States and you are searching for mental health, you can call 211 or you can go to 211.org. And this is like anywhere in the United States. It's kind of like 911, except for your mental health and for any other kind of deal. So if you're maybe not suicidal, but maybe you're looking for help otherwise, you can go to you can just call 211 and they'll put you in touch with local groups and organizations that can help you seek either therapy or some some basic stuff or basic care. If that's what you're looking for.
I think the biggest thing is just to know that you're not alone.
You're not alone. It always reminds me of a David Bowie song. Sorry. So why do you think people think that they've missed their chance to change, or that they've that they think it's too late? What do you think actually goes through their heads?
I think that we have our brains try to, like I said, this weird relationship with time, that everything has to be worth something. So it feels like, oh, we've invested, quote unquote, invested so much in this path of, like you said, you used to identify as a smoker. Like, I'm a smoker. That's just what I am. I always have been. And so first of all, we don't believe in ourselves. So it's an excuse. It's another excuse, which we can get very creative on excuses to not get sober.
So creative. Talk about being creative.
So creative. Yeah. So I think it's partially that, and fear, and feeling like, why start now? It's that dichotomous thinking of all hope is lost, instead of seeing it as a gray area of, okay, well, maybe it won't look like what my picture of recovery is, but there's always, I heard about someone who just got sober at age 80 and he's the happiest he's ever been, So
those are always the dudes that die the quickest.
Don't put that evil on him.
I hate to get invested in the 80-year-old, but you never know. It could go double-digit sobriety, right? It could totally happen.
Yeah. I guess I always go back to my deathbed theory of what do you want to have looked back on, right?
Yeah, so, I've tried to bring that up with some people, and some people will be like, I can't count on any of that shit, and da, da, da. And I'm like, what? I'm like, but I kind of do that too. It's like, I don't. My biggest fear, when I was doing my fears list in my step work, one of my biggest fears was that nobody would show up to my funeral, which is so true, though. Before I got sober, I could really tell you there would be maybe a handful of people that would be showing up to my funeral. There would not be many people being like, I gotta go pay respects to Carl.
Yeah.
They would be more like, fuck that dude. Glad he's gone. What a waste. Right? And now I look at it very differently. The impact, a really good example. So my sponsor, John Jones, who, I can say his name now that he's died, right? So he was it's like, I think about it, like he had, 25 years or whatever, right? So, and it never really dawned on me that he probably got sober when he was 35, 38 years old, right? And I was just like, oh, so like really a majority of his sobriety in the time that he had in sobriety is 25 years would basic is like, the age I am now. Like, oh, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, and the impact that he had on me was so great, so significant, and just so profound that like
Yeah.
I like, and to think that I would have never gotten that beauty, right? Is kind of crazy because it's like, so I think like, what if he would have thought the same way? What if he would have said, nah,
Right.
I'm 38, I don't want to get sober now, and I'm fuck this shit. Like, I'm going to go
Yeah.
back to drinking, So that's how I kind of look at it. And then I look at it for myself. I'm like, oh, that's what I want to give somebody else. I really want to give somebody else that amount of like, that amount of recovery, right? That amount of care, attention, and compassion. And
Yeah.
to me, like, because that's like literally planting the tree, right? Shit,
Yeah.
that's growing the tree,
Which
So
you can only give by experiencing it, right?
exactly. You can't buy that shit. You can't order it off of Amazon or eBay. It does.
Yeah.
It doesn't come from 6 months of sobriety either, right?
No, you
That's
can't
long.
get it reading a book. You can't, it's just, yeah. And that's why I think our work is so important.
So you brought up the fear, right?
Yeah.
Of like kind of going into things. One of the things that I had a biggest fear, and it did kind of happen a little bit, is like I got a creative block. I couldn't act normal. I had a fear of like my relationships changing. I had a fear of
yeah.
like, of blowing my brains out. Actually, I had a fear. There were so many fears around all that stuff, and just because we're alcoholic and addicts, we don't like change. We don't like the idea
No.
of change. It's like, what do
Even
you?
if it's good change, and we
Yeah,
know that it's change.
yeah,
And
we
it's
want
scary.
nothing to do with it for sure.
No.
So,
No.
what do you think is like? How do you talk to somebody like that when you're talking to somebody about that fear that, like, it'll be different or it'll be too different or whatever? Like, how do you bring that up?
Honestly, I think they need to get to a point where the pain of staying the same starts to outweigh the fear of doing something different. And that's only, like we said a couple episodes ago, or last episode, if what you're doing is now cool with you, then keep doing it. You can call me every day and tell me how it's not working for you. But if you are done, and as your thing said, as your reflection said, sick and tired of being sick and tired, then try something different. And it is scary. It does invoke fear of change, and like we've talked about too, like fear of success, fear of things going well. Like I didn't know what that meant, because through my negative lens and perspective, everything was horrible. So yeah, I would just say to give it a try. And we always know you can go back to it. And as weird as that sounds, if that needs to be a comfort to you, any day I can drink. Like I can go out, I can say F this, and tonight I can go to a bar and I can blow it all up again if I want to.
I just think how pointless that sounds to me right now.
It sounds right.
And
And
for what? To what end?
To what end? So it's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
at least give yourself the chance to try, give yourself the chance to heal and just see what could happen. I mean, talking about the relationship things, yeah, I was so scared like that I wouldn't have the same friends and this and that. And now I'm like, thank God I don't have the same friends, because I just didn't. And
But you had friends. That's what I'm curious about. You actually had,
but they
friends?
weren't actual friends. That's what I'm saying. Like it was just party friends at that point.
Oh,
And anyone who drank as much as me or more than me, like I had lowered myself to. I have one friend who I had since I was 7 who stuck with me through everything. Other than that, like the true friends before using and drinking, they're not. I just damaged everything. And so then the friends in drinking and addiction were just not, like I said, not friends. So Yeah, they say, change everything. And I did slowly. And that was all on my terms. If someone had told me, like, I had to slowly stop going to things and like realize that I had nothing in common with those people anymore, which was a sad realization, but like helps me grow sometimes. And this just isn't about drinking or not. Like sometimes we grow apart from other people and other people stop on their journey or start another one that just doesn't align with ours. And that's okay. But how about you? Like what would you say to somebody who is still in that place of like getting stuck in self-pity and not able to take the plunge or make changes?
It's funny. I just said this in a men's meeting the other day. Somebody was talking about they relapsed and they were taking dirty chips for like the last whatever 3-4 months. Yeah, so they finally confessed, and then they're saying, I'm a piece of shit, and I'm just a piece of shit. Basically, that was the message overall. And I turned to him and I said, "Can you come down off the cross? We could use the wood."
Wow, that's a good one.
Because to be honest, it's like I love self-pity. I can't even begin to tell you how much that was
It's like a warm blanket.
Part of my fiber. Like I loved feeling like shit, and which is kind of weird when I really think about it. I got off on just being like the more darker, morose, depressed, and woe is me that I got, like the better everything was. There's nothing like, I love Tom Waits. Tom Waits is
Yes.
He's got this persona that he uses in his music, and it's basically like a drunkard kind of persona. There's nothing better for me than getting fucking totally sloshed and listening to Tom Waits for 3 or 4 hours in an evening while I fuck off doing something, right? And then pass out. That's just to me that's the best fucking evening right there, pretending like I have a broken heart when my wife is upstairs in bed. Right?
Yes.
It's kind of like how that goes.
So relate. Oh my gosh.
So I would say, if you feel like you've, it's in the book somewhere. If you feel like you've broken your dick, rub some dirt on it and get back in there, right? Because how we used to behave and how we used to act and feeling sorry for ourselves and like, oh, I'll never get this and this isn't for me and blah, blah, blah. It's all bullshit. It really is.
Yeah.
And it's funny you were talking about friends and I was just sitting there and I was like, I had no friends, but I did not know it.
1,000%.
I did not, if you were to put me in a room with a therapist and my therapist would say, tell me about your friends, I'd tell them all about the people that I work with, my neighbors, you know what I mean? Like any, even old friends from high school that I see on Facebook or whatever. But dude, I really have any real relationship with these people? Absolutely not. Let me just say, unless people were paid, they didn't show up in my presence. You know what I mean? They had no desire to be in my vicinity unless they were getting a paycheck. And I didn't understand a lot of that stuff.
Right.
I didn't. Right. So unless their house was right next to me, they didn't want to bother with me. Right?
Lucky them.
Yeah, right? So lucky the people in the world, right, that never approached me. But now, today, it's a completely different story. It really is. Like, I actually get phone calls, believe it or not, which I think is really strange sometimes.
Same.
When you get a phone call, you're like, why are you calling me?
Yeah. Like, why does this person even still want to hang out with me?
Yeah. What's going on with that?
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of unique. I think that's really strange. But let me just say, as we get older and as we, like, I drank myself into that behavior and that pattern and that lack, and that's what I became used to. So I did not know. I thought that that's how everybody's other relationships actually were. To me, it was normal to not have that level of relationship or engagement. You know?
Right.
So So if I was going to say to somebody like, get out of your shit, the fact is like everybody is so like involved in their own little worlds that like they need to like look outward at first.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things, we haven't talked about is like that interaction with other humans as you get into recovery, being older. That's kind of weird too, right?
Yeah.
Like, did you have any issue like when you did that stuff? Because I know for me, I totally did. Like just even saying hello, like I had to like, it's like that became really foreign. There was a podium meeting that you go to where you have to get up to a podium when you talk.
Yeah.
And like, so if they hand you a reading, I didn't know this, but they handed me a reading because when you're new, people hand you readings and shit.
Yeah.
And then you see the meeting going, and it's like, wait a minute, everybody has to go up to a podium and talk. Like, oh shit! Like, I go up there, I'm reading, and fucking my pits are sweating, my hands are sweating.
Yeah.
And then I made the mistake of telling my sponsor and another person we were talking. They were like talking about the podium meeting. I'm like, I'm terrified. I can't go up there. I can't talk like that. I can't do that shit. You realize like you've kind of, if you drink yourself into this isolation as you got older, and that's kind of what got me too. Is like I was like 15 years. Yeah, I had acquaintances, work friends, quote unquote, but I didn't have any people that I actually talked to, or that I even talked to about me. Like if it wasn't about work or something like that, or politics or something
like a
else,
surface level issue.
Yeah. If I had to talk about me, I was terrified, and so then I remember having to go up to the podium because they were ribbing me to go up to the podium at one point. And I was like, "Fuck, okay," and then I actually started to let my hair down. I don't have any hair, but I started to let my hair down, and I actually understood that, like, holy shit, that was terrifying. But at the same time, like, I needed that. I needed to like experience community. I needed to have that brotherhood that was going on, and that unity that happens in the rooms and stuff like that. Because you don't get that unless you're like going to church, maybe, or some other engagement.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't have any of that like community. I mean, other than my family.
In the bar, right? Like, it's, yeah. But that's a different
it's
level.
So shallow.
Yeah.
It's so, that's such shallow relationships, because those have become my friendships, like regulars at the bar. Yeah. What was I going to say though? You were just saying something and I totally lost it. Oh yeah, you were asking about like talking to people for the first time and getting to know people, and I just didn't even know how to have a conversation. Like I had to be taught, like, you ask someone how they're doing, and then the next time you see them, maybe remember something that they said the first time and ask them how that's going. Like I didn't listen to people. I was just so stuck in my fear. And one of my first service positions was being a greeter at a meeting, which is the worst. I would think I was like less than 6 months sober, and I had to say hi to every single person walking in this meeting. It was a women's meeting, and it was like an old meeting, meaning like it's been around for a long time. So a lot of people with time come there, and I'm just standing there so awkward, like, hi, welcome, and I don't know anyone. And forget speaking in front of people. That was the most terrifying thing.
Did you remember anybody's names like that? Because I don't remember shit about people. Like I was like, I was so terrified that I couldn't even remember a person's name.
I couldn't remember anything except like I would, if I shared in a meeting or had a conversation, I spent the rest of the meeting or the rest of the time wherever I was like replaying what I said and how stupid it sounded. Like nothing.
You're totally my people, Lindsay.
Yeah, I took in nothing else. Nothing else. And now if I lead a meeting, like I just feel like I'm chill. I have like my sunglasses on, cigarette, like hey. Not an actual cigarette, but I'm in that chill mode of just because now I can relate to people, which is what a gift.
Yeah,
what a gift.
It's amazingly like, so when we it's like the things that we're talking about, it's like I think one of the ways I'd like to try and wrap it up is to say, like, even though I ostracized myself for many years in alcoholism and addiction, and ostracized myself from kind of social and community level participation, even individual participation. It's like that's why I love the acronym. Like people talk about alcoholism, and it's like ISM for me means like I separate myself. That's exactly what it is. I separate myself from everybody and everything all the time, 24/7. And so I think it's really unique, and I think it's something that you should not miss, which is like watching yourself in the mirror a little bit as you step into and through recovery through the years, watching yourself come alive, watching the lights come on. And, you start to, like those little things that other people, normies or whatever, that maybe they figured out in high school or their public speaking classes in college or whatever the hell it is that they did. Watching myself go through that growth was just fucking beautiful. And I loved every bit of it, because that to me is where the magic and the fruits of this action come into place. Even though I'm not responsible for the results, I'm just responsible for the work. The fact is looking back, I can easily see where it was all worth it. And the fact that I may have felt very behind the eight ball and that I had a lot of catching up to do. I really do. The fact is that I just leaned into it every time it came up, no matter what it was. So if it was interpersonal skills, like you're talking about, shaking hands, doing meeting and greetings, or if it was feelings, exploring the feelings wheel, or if it was, how to be attentive and how to care for somebody who's going through a hard time, or how to grieve a loss of a person or a pet or whatever it is. Like I just leaned into it every time. And let me tell you, every effort was worth it. There wasn't a single moment that I look back and go, over this last 10 years ago, this recovery shit, stupid.
No,
not
a
single time,
Even the harder times, and when we fumble, it's like a baby learning how to walk, you just are going to have those, or else you're not going to walk. So it's kind of like that. And with the ism thing, like the disease, they always say the disease wants you alone. Like alcoholism
100%.
wants you sitting on your couch listening to Tom Waits and hating.
Not that there's anything wrong with Tom Waits. Okay,
there's nothing wrong with
he
Tom
is in
Waits.
recovery. I just want to say, if you go look him up, he is in recovery.
I still listen to a lot of sad, morbid music too. I love that. I love that heartbreak shit, even in a very healthy relationship. Go into those fantasies. It's so weird.
But you know what? I listen to that shit very differently now too. There's another side of that coin, which is like if I listen to it today, I hear different shit. Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
Like you'll hear, it's like you're on the other side of the looking glass. I think that's really very wonderful.
Yeah.
So I don't want to like talking about that. I just mentioned like the fruits of sobriety and recovery. Talk about your fruits in sobriety. Like, how do you see the perspective or the change or the shift? Like how would you tell somebody like who is considering quote unquote a life in recovery? What would you tell them about how that worked for you?
I would tell them that life, and this probably would have sounded crazy to me at the time, but life is so beautiful and you're really missing it. I mean, I remember I got sober in the fall and I just looking around at the leaves and everything felt like it was in Technicolor. And now just noticing nature, I can just sit outside and watch the same deer for 30 minutes. And and I'm not saying that's what it will look like for you, but you realize how big this world really is and how to be a participant of it, rather than on the sidelines feeling sorry for yourself. And I think everyone deserves that chance and that feeling of liberation. So highly, highly recommend giving it a shot and giving yourself a shot. And even if you don't really know what that means, give your soul a chance at this.
And the Carl version is rub some dirt on it and get back out there.
Yes. I love how we balance each other out.
Yes, exactly. Short and sweet. All right, Lindsay. So I think that wraps it up for.
Yeah.
So, if you were going to like one more time, if you were going to talk to like the newcomer or maybe the younger person who wants to plant their tree today, rather than the old timer or the one who's been drinking for the 15 years, what would you say? I guess here's wrap it up this way. How, if I could actually get the question out, if you were to talk to your 25-year-old self, what would you tell your 25-year-old self about planting a tree today, right? Versus like, later in life, like I had to do, or like some of these other people had to do.
Okay. Do something today that your future self will thank you for.
What would that be?
Oh,
I'm wondering like what
that would be giving yourself a chance. I mean, if we're talking about sobriety, going to a meeting or just taking one action today that is different than you did yesterday. And trusting that and being open to the results.
Perfect. That is beautiful. All right, party people. That's it. That's all we have for this session. And Lindsay, thank you so much for coming on. And by the way, we didn't really talk about it very much at the top of the podcast, but by all means, please go to soberpod.com and look for all of the SoberPod information. You can actually buy the book there as well. So there's links to do all that stuff. And then I don't really have your stuff listed on the website. I probably should, Lindsay. So your book is titled what?
My book is called Spirit Vigilante, Telling My Truth to Help You Live Yours. And I can be found on Instagram at Spirit Vigilante. And my website is thespiриtvigilante.com.
Thespiриtvigilante.com.
Yeah.
Or however you want to say
if you
it.
literally
Tomato, that shit.
If you Google Spirit Vigilante, you'll see me everywhere, whether you want to or not.
I'm really glad I did not put my book my face on the back of the book or anything. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I just to me, it's funny. I was reading this book, Rainn Wilson, Dwight Schrute.
Yes.
So I was reading Soul Bloom.
Soul Boom. You're the third person who's brought up Rainn Wilson to me this week. I need to, And
he has his picture on the back of the cover, and I just go, I'm like, does he regret that at all?
Yeah. I mean.
Oh, yeah, you got yours on there, too.
This is the front.
Well, you're on there.
And the back.
And people will know it's you. That's for sure.
They sure will. That was that was not my idea.
Well, I'm not sweating it. I'm just saying, I'm just glad I didn't do it, because it's like, I don't know. I look at Rainn Wilson and I go, he just looks like he's in a Glamour Shots is what it looks like on the back of his book. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like, I'm so glad I didn't do it.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
All right, yo. Well, that's it. That's all she wrote. So what do you say to the pretty polite people out there, Lindsay?
Beautiful people. Trust your truth.
And I say stay active, stay sober. See ya.
Soberpod.com. Yeah. It was a sight to see him. Breakfast with Sprite and Seagrams. Wrestling with my vices, exercising my demons. My blessings were blocked, so I never got the message. I'm stressing, I'm only 12 steps from an exit. Regret it, because my imperfections were perfected. I ain't run from it, I accept it and rep it. It's a badge to me, good stories come from a tragedy. And when you survive, the glory will come in Act 3. The wait's over, 366 days sober. Morning affirmations that can start the day for you. Use my favorite bookmark for a placeholder. Finish when the day's over. Okay. Yeah, sober pod, keep it authentic, no facades. If it's real, then you know it's ours. Welcome.